I did a video on that. Rebecca Lobo said the language that the union, the players union, is using, and my glasses just hit the floor. And I'm back. And no, I'm not cutting that out of the video. Okay? Where was I? Rebecca Lobo. Maybe she is seeing the light, not necessarily voluntarily, but with the help of Rebecca Lobo, who said that.
Rebecca Lobo's words hit differently when you're actually sitting at the negotiating table. 15 months into the CBA battle, Breanna Stewart has admitted she's only now beginning to see a light at the end of the tunnel. And that distinction matters. It's not that the light is suddenly there. It's that after all this time, she's just starting to notice it. That's not real progress. It's a red flag dressed up as cautious optimism. And the timing of this subtle shift, that's where the real story lives.
I mean, really heard what Rebecca Lobo said. Whatever the case may be, she says that she's starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So we're going to go to Fox Office Sports, look at a little bit of what was said in that interview, and just do a little bit of a recap of the journey the WNBA CBA negotiations have been on.
October 21st, 2024 marked the moment WNBA players opted out of their collective bargaining agreement. And since then, the negotiations have steadily spiraled into a public relations mess. The players' union has used charged language like slap in the face while criticizing million-dollar contracts, all while demanding 30% of gross revenue and pushing for a salary cap near $10.5 million. The league responded with a proposal centered on 70% of net revenue and a $5 million cap. According to ESPN, league officials believe the union's plan would lead to a projected $700 million loss over the life of the deal. Those figures aren't abstract. They highlight the gap between understanding business fundamentals and making demands that play well in a press conference.
Now, 15 months later, who would have thought? It's been 15 months. Wow. Now, Breanna Stewart told Front Office Sports that she is, quote, just starting to see a possible resolution to the talks. It goes on to say that what I already told you, played for the Liberty, unrivaled co-founder, part of the WNBA Players Union, vice president, and they, of course, have been pushing for a bigger share of the revenue. Stewart told reporters in January.
Here's what Stewart actually told Front Office Sports. She admitted she wasn't an economics major, but said the players are trying to get the best deal possible and want to negotiate in good faith with the league. That admission matters, because fans have been pointing this out for months. You can't negotiate a sustainable business deal if you don't understand the difference between gross and net revenue. You can't demand a bigger slice of the pie if you can't explain how the pie is made. And you certainly can't lean on inflammatory language about disrespect while acknowledging you lack the expertise to fully evaluate the proposals on the table. Stewart's honesty is refreshing, but also confirms what many suspected, that the leadership guiding these negotiations has been driven more by emotion and optics than by economic reality.
When they decided to strike, that was the word they used, when. So in a recent interview with Fox Office Sports, she said that her brain was hurting because of all the complexity, all the talking, all the negotiating. Then she says this: unfortunately, I wasn't an economics major or anything like that, but we're trying to get the best deal possible and we want to negotiate in good faith with the league. We're hoping for some positive kind of change or reinforcement here. Well, I am personally glad to hear her say she's not an economics major, because that's
December was supposed to be the breakthrough month. The WNBA put a structured offer on the table that would give players 70% of net revenue. Hardly a lowball proposal, especially for a league still working toward consistent profitability. The union responded with a counter demanding 30% of gross revenue and a $10.5 million salary cap. And the league hasn't replied. That silence says a lot. When one side presents an offer so disconnected from financial reality that countering it risks insulting the other side's intelligence, the respondents often go quiet, regroup, and question whether the other party is truly serious about reaching a deal. The two sides agreed to deadline extensions, but October 31st, 2025 came and went, and January passed without an agreement. Now they're operating in a status quo period, meaning the old CBA remains in effect. But either side could trigger a work stoppage at any moment.
Kind of. I'm just starting to see it. 15 months, and she's just starting to see it. So she kind of feels like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And it goes on to talk about Adam Silver, talks about how he wants to do a women's league in Europe, just like he's planning to do a men's league. And it goes on from there. So I guess kind of feeling like there's a light at the end of the tunnel starting to appear is a good thing. Like, think about this. This is January.
And that's the leverage play neither side wants to fully acknowledge. The league could lock the players out, and the players have already authorized a strike vote that passed with near unanimous support. Both sides are holding nuclear options, and while neither wants to use them, the longer this drags on, the more likely it becomes that someone pulls the trigger. That's a reality in late January, when free agency should be underway. The draft is approaching, and college players are finishing their seasons and heading toward March Madness without knowing what kind of league they're about to enter. Teams can't plan, fans can't buy tickets with confidence, and sponsors are watching the dysfunction while reassessing their investments. Stewart says she's starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel, but she qualifies it, saying she's only just beginning to see it. That's not confidence. That's hope layered with exhaustion.
Things have to get moving if you're going to have a season. This, of course, is connected to the NCAA, women's college basketball. They're going to be moving toward March Madness and moving toward the Final Four and the championship and the draft. And obviously before that, you got to start looking at free agency. These players have no idea what that's going to look like, and the fans certainly have no idea what.
Compare this interview to what we've heard from Nafisa Collier over the past few months. Collier has been the public face of the union's more aggressive negotiating stance, using charged language like slap in the face, undervalued, and disrespected. The kind of rhetoric Rebecca Lobo warned could alienate fans and weaken the player's position. Stewart's tone here is noticeably different. She isn't throwing verbal grenades. She's talking about negotiating in good faith and acknowledging how complex the economics actually are. That shift didn't happen by accident. When a respected voice like Lobo publicly cautions that fan support is slipping, smart people listen. And Stewart is smart enough to recognize when the messaging needs to change. The real question is whether that realization came too late, because the damage caused by months of public posturing doesn't disappear overnight.
Have been running their mouths, and in my opinion, that's not good faith negotiating. And certainly when you talk about slaps in the face and that you're undervalued and all that, that certainly doesn't lend itself to. Let's
talk about what a realistic deal actually looks like, because this is where economic literacy really matters. The WNBA is not the NBA, and the revenue structures couldn't be more different. The NBA brings in more than $10 billion annually through a mature media rights ecosystem, global reach, and decades of brand equity. The WNBA is still building those foundations. When players demand 30% of gross revenue, they're asking for money that includes costs the league hasn't even covered yet. Gross revenue is a top-line figure. It ignores operating expenses like facilities, travel, marketing, expansion, and long-term investment. Net revenue is what's left after the bills are paid, and that's the actual pool available for distribution. By offering players 70% of net revenue, the league is proposing a sustainable model that allows growth. Demanding 30% of gross revenue is essentially asking to get paid before the business keeps the lights on, which is how leagues fail. Stewart's admission that she isn't an economics major helps explain why this disconnect exists, but it doesn't excuse it, especially in negotiations involving hundreds of millions of dollars. At this level, you hire experts, model scenarios, and negotiate from reality, not optics. The fact that it's taken 15 months of the union to start seeing a viable path forward suggests that education is finally happening, just far later than it should have. Fan fatigue is the other critical issue, and Rebecca Lobo nailed it. Fans showed up in record numbers last season. They bought tickets, merchandise, and subscriptions. They supported expansion and new media deals. And now they're watching that momentum get stalled by labor disputes over demands many fans view as unrealistic. The Indiana Fever fan base is a perfect example. They want to see Caitlin Clark, watch Aaliyah Boston grow, and follow a team with real excitement. Instead, they're stuck watching negotiations drag on. That enthusiasm doesn't last forever. Stewart acknowledging a light at the end of the tunnel matters because it signals the players may finally understand that the clock isn't just about the season. It's about fan patience, sponsor confidence, and momentum created by last year's breakthrough. For this deal to close, a few things have to happen. First, the union needs to accept net revenue, not gross, as the baseline for any sustainable agreement. Second, both sides need to focus on growing the overall pie through better media deals, international expansion, and smarter marketing, rather than fighting over percentages of current revenue. Third, and most importantly, negotiations need to move out of the media. Public rhetoric about disrespect and slights only hardens positions and damages trust. Stewart's measured tone in her front office sports interview is exactly what productive negotiations sound like. The league's stance has been consistent. It wants to pay players more, but within a structure that allows the business to grow. The players' position has evolved from pay us what we're worth to we're starting to see a path forward, which suggests progress. But seeing light doesn't mean you've reached the exit. The risks are still very real. A work stoppage is still on the table. Free agency remains delayed. Draft preparations could be disrupted. A shortened or canceled season is still possible. None of that disappears just because Stewart sounds more optimistic now than she did a few months ago. Last season gave players leverage, and they were right to use it. But leverage only works if you understand what you're leveraging toward. Demands that could bankrupt the league aren't leverage. They're self-defeating. The union has had ample time and access to experts to understand these fundamentals. And if that understanding is only now coming together, that's a failure of preparation. Both sides clearly want a deal. The league wants to build on last season's success, and the players want to get paid and get back on the court. That shared interest is what ultimately closes negotiations. But wanting a deal isn't the same as making the compromises required to reach one. Stewart seeing a light at the end of the tunnel is more than we had a month ago, but we're still in the tunnel. The next few weeks will determine whether that light is the exit or just another false hope, whether education turns into realistic proposals, and whether ego and public posturing finally give way to a deal that sustains the league's momentum. Fans are waiting. Sponsors are watching, and the opportunity created last season won't last forever.